on the air with the new comments just in from the governor of Arkansas, calling what 3 police officers did reprehensible after a video that's now gone viral caught them violently beating a suspect. We'll talk about what's coming next after their suspension. Plus, when you hear 1,000-year event, you probably think, okay, that's something that only happens once every 1,000 years. Sure, fair. So how do you make sense of the fact we've seen multiple once-in-a-1,000-year floods this month alone? We're live in Dallas, where one is actually happening right now. And in just 9 days, President Biden has a big decision to make. Does he delay or cancel student loan debt payments? Or will millions of people have to start them back up? We'll talk about how that deadline is running up against inflation concerns. Plus, they don't call him the worm for nothing. Basketball Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman now wriggling his way into U.S.-Russia relations, where he says he's going to try and free Brittany Griner. But we're now hearing from the State Department about why they'd prefer Rodman simply did not. And is Tom Brady going on The Masked Singer? Reddit seems to think so. Or, hey, maybe it was a Bahamas trip that kept him out of training camp. So what's he saying or not on Brady's first day back with the Bucs? We've got that MVP mystery that everybody's talking about a little later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight we're starting in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Governor Asa Hutchinson late today called the conduct of 3 police officers in the city of Mulberry reprehensible. Hutchinson speaking with reporters after a video went viral showing the officers violently arresting a suspect over the weekend outside a convenience store.
This is not what our law enforcement community represents. It's not the proper response, and they will be reviewed and appropriate action taken.
We're going to show you the video of the arrest. We want to give you a heads up. It's hard to watch, okay? We're just going to show it this one time because you can see the suspect on the ground here as one officer, you're looking at it, punches him multiple times, slams his head into the pavement. Another officer appears to knee the man a few times. State police say he had to go to the hospital before he could be taken to jail. Police say they were arresting the suspect on allegations of trespassing and other crimes. State police are now investigating this whole thing. Governor Hutchinson says the DOJ is also. Arkansas State Police Director says all 3 officers have been suspended with pay, with all of it raising new questions about police use of force. Priscilla Thompson is in Mulberry, Arkansas, and joins us now. So, Priscilla, you've got state investigators focusing on use of force at this convenience store. What else do you know about this investigation, the federal one, and where this goes next?
Right, Hallie. So pretty quickly after all of this happened, the governor announced that this investigation was going to be led by this special investigation unit at the state level. And they are going to be looking at the use of force and also turning that investigation over to a prosecuting attorney who's going to evaluate what their investigation finds against what is on the law in terms of what Arkansas police officers are supposed to do in a situation like this. And there is the potential for criminal charges. That is something that the governor was asked about earlier today and said that that is something that certainly could come out of this. And you also mentioned the FBI and DOJ investigation that we have learned is now happening, with the sheriff actually saying that there were FBI agents on the ground here today looking into this incident. And of course, that DOJ investigation is going to focus on any potential civil rights violations. I will tell you, the attorneys for the suspect, the man who was pinned on the ground during that encounter, certainly feels like there are some violations of his constitutional rights. And they say that they feel that all of the charges against their client should be dropped, and that they would like to see where this investigation will go and if it will ultimately lead to those criminal charges and, of course, any sort of charges related to the civil rights violations that they feel have occurred here. Hallie?
You know, the governor mentioned, and it caught my ear as I was listening to this news conference from Governor Hutchinson just in the last couple of hours here, that the suspect had some kind of a history that made him a legitimate concern for officers. What do we know about that and how the situation, if we know anything about how the situation got so violent?
Right. So we see this 30-second clip that went viral, but we don't know what happened before the camera started rolling. And I actually asked the attorneys for the man who was seen in that video being pinned down about that today. And they told me that they're hearing conflicting stories from police about what happened. And so they want to wait and see how this investigation plays out before commenting on what happened before the video started rolling. But what police have said is that this suspect, Randall Worcester was actually in town earlier that day, and he had committed what they're saying are terroristic threats. And so they had been looking for him all morning. They found him at this convenience store after he allegedly spit on a clerk there, and that is when this arrest unfolded. We know that he has now been charged with more than half a dozen different charges, including assault, battery, making terroristic threats, and also resisting arrest. But it remains to be seen. He has not yet pled on those charges because they haven't actually been officially filed. He was booked on them, but they're not yet officially filed so that he can plea. And so we'll see over the coming days and weeks how many of those charges actually stick and how Mr. Worcester actually pleads to those charges. Hallie.
Before I let you go, Priscilla, I just want to mention that we heard from the Crawford County Sheriff today, too. Two of the officers involved in this incident belong to that department. And there was a mention of, I think, some video, some dash cam video, right? Do we know if that is going to be released, when that may happen, what we're hearing from that department, if anything?
Yeah, so no word on when that video is going to be released. We do know it has been handed over to state investigators. And the sheriff earlier in his press conference did make a comment about what may have happened before the 30-second clip that everyone is seeing, saying that the dash cam has captured some other things that were not seen in that video. But even as he said that, he also continued to condemn the actions of the officers. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
Nobody condones this type of activity or this kind of violence. It's not what we stand for. I said that, and that's what I stand on.
And even without all the context here, that is a message that we are hearing from the state all the way down to the local level, that it appears that this was uncalled for and unwarranted, and a lot of folks just struggling to understand how it got to that point. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson live for us there in Mulberry, Arkansas. Thank you. I know you've got more work to do ahead of Nightly News. We'll look for your reporting later on tonight with Lester. Thanks. We've got a little bit of breaking news just into us. Actually, right as we were walking into the studio, we found out that former President Trump has now formally and officially made a new legal filing. And this one is one he's been hinting about for days now after the search of his Mar-a-Lago home, in which the feds essentially retrieved 11 sets of classified material. He wants something called a special master. What is that, right? That's basically a third party that looks through what was taken. It's coming, as we're learning more now from the judge overseeing this case, that we might not get a lot of reasons as to the why of this search. Judge Reinhardt, Bruce Reinhardt, saying today that he's got to look and see if he's going to make any of this public once the government turns over its proposed redactions. You know, it's going to cross out stuff that's sensitive. The judge is essentially saying, hey, if too much of this is sensitive, if too much is blacked out, if it looks like some kid took a Sharpie and just scribbled everywhere, like it may be meaningless to actually release this to the public. Let me bring in now our reporter who is all over this story for us, and that is Ryan Riley. Ryan, let me bring you in first on this developing news, this special master. I want to note here that former President Trump, since Friday, has hinted his team would do this. His attorney went out on an appearance and talked about wanting to do this, and now they're backing it up with the paperwork. They actually have filed now for this third-party review. Talk about the significance.
Yeah, I think it's about 2 weeks too late. If the lawyers had been on top of the game, I think this would have been something that would have been filed immediately after the search was conducted, because the FBI team has already spent, now nearly 2 weeks, factor in shipping, getting that information up there. They've had at least a week plus to look over these materials and be using the FBI SORT team to decide what can go in and out. But there's one message, Hallie, that I really wanted to highlight here. And we had heard some reporting, I believe, from the New York Times about this, but I wanted to read this because it's something a message that is included in this lawsuit that was sent from one of President Trump's lawyers and delivered to a lawyer at the Justice Department on August 11th. And it's a very unusual message. And this was in the days after President Trump had ramped up a lot of the fear about the search and been making all of these public claims. And this was right before Merrick Garland held that press conference. And here's what the message said. President Trump wants the Attorney General to know that he has been hearing from people all over the country about the raid. If there was one word to describe their mood, it is angry. The heat is building up. The pressure is building up. Whatever I can do to take the heat down, to bring the pressure down, just let us know. It's a very unusual message for a target in this instance of a ongoing criminal investigation to send to the Attorney General. I mean, obviously, he's the former president, so everything about this is a little bit unusual. But essentially what he's doing is is taking advantage of a lot of that heat that he himself has caused within his within the base of his supporters, and basically saying, hey, listen, there's a lot of people who are really mad about this, and essentially trying to warn Merrick Garland about going forward with this. It's kind of a little bit of a mob-esque sort of message, and it's interesting that they just chose to include that in this lawsuit.
There's this new NBC News polling that's out showing that nearly 60% of Americans, 57%, think that the investigations into the former president's potential wrongdoing should continue, right? And that is coming amid, I think, what you were seeing from some of the former president's Republican allies, calls for what they describe as transparency. They want to see this affidavit released. The Department of Justice has said, hey, there could be real concerns if we share too much of why we searched Mar-a-Lago in the first place. That could actually hurt the investigation. Congressman Adam Schiff, just this weekend said, hey, that could basically be giving Trump allies a roadmap as to how to thwart this investigation. I'm paraphrasing here. How significant is it going to be when Judge Reinhart, the judge in this instance, sees these proposed redactions from the DOJ and either says, hey, sure, we'll release this with these proposed redactions, or there's so much blacked out here that it's not even worth showing to the public?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close call because those redactions are definitely going to be pretty heavy. And we might ultimately see something that is very blacked out. Newsrooms across the country might run out of toner printing this one out if we eventually do get it, because I think we're just going to see such heavy redactions in it. But I do think it's sort of a jump ball whether or not he's ultimately going to decide to put that out. He basically doesn't want the Justice Department or him really making what is essentially an editorial decision about the information that could be disclosed. Even though this information could be irrelevant or not give you that, or meaningless or not give you that much, if there's a motion for public access, he's wondering whether or not what they can disclose should be brought forward. But I would, basically what you should expect here are really heavily redacted pages because I don't think DOJ wants to give any information to the former president about this ongoing investigation, or especially tip him off about who might be assisting with this investigation or on the prosecution side, Hallie.
Ryan Riley, thanks for jumping in front of a camera with that developing news for us right as we're coming on the air. Thank you. Down in Texas now, Dallas Fire Rescue says it's had to get nearly 200 people out of dangerously high water, with more than 13 million people under flood warnings today alone. And you can see, you're just about to see what about 8 inches of rain in like 24 hours looks like. Look at this. People trying to slog through water that's up to their knees. You're going to see people holding onto their bikes. Boy, not a day to go for a ride, right? Cars submerged almost up to the rearview mirrors. Our Dallas station talked with one guy who had to use a broom to sweep out the water in his apartment. Look at that.
I know that these water situations and, flooding can happen really quickly, but I had never experienced that before, so it was a pretty eye-opening experience.
Meteorologists call this kind of thing a 1,000-year flood. But this is the country's 5th 1,000-year flood this month. And listen, I know that we news people might sound kind of dramatic when we say things like 1,000-year flood, right? But this is a real term. This is a technical term that meteorologists use to describe weather events that should not be happening all of the time. You can see on that map where the floods have hit from Death Valley to eastern Kentucky. They've killed dozens of people. They've destroyed homes. They've stranded folks on the road. And right now, where it's not wet, it is hot. Look at Texas. You see the 3 big cities, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. On average, they have something like 7 to 20 days that are over 100 degrees in any given year. Well, look at the numbers for this year. So far, it's basically triple in all 3. Our Jay Gray is out there for us. And Jay, this is after the city, right, where you are, had a stretch of 67 no-rain days this summer. They needed water, but they certainly didn't need water like this.
Yeah. No, Hallie, I mean, a few weeks ago, you and I were talking about the drought here and the extreme heat, and boy, how things have changed. We needed the rain, but not this fast and not this much. I want to give you an idea of what happened here overnight. People say the water along this street was 3.5 feet tall and rushing like a river. You can't see it through the camera lens, but inside this car, the water line's up to the headliners here, so the water filled this entire vehicle, carried it out into the street. As you look down, there's several more vehicles that were literally pushed from parking lots in this area out and into the street. Look across. You can take a look at the water line. You can see how high the water was. That's about from this street level at least 3 feet high, and again, rushing like a torrent. We've been inside some of these businesses and homes where the water just whipped through and tore up everything. And then more evidence of how powerful it was. And this has kind of been swept up, but you can see the debris that was carried by this water, and it is just everywhere. Unfortunately, this is a scene that's playing out across Dallas, Fort Worth, all of North Texas right now. They had over 150 high water incidents. Many of those were pulling people from cars like these that were swept away and getting them to safety. Spitting rain, as I talked about. We don't need any more rain. We're going to get a little more, not a lot more. But the cleanup really can't begin in earnest until things are cleared away here, until the water stopped and people can get out and start to deal with what this water's left behind. It's a real mess, Hallie, and it's going to be for a while.
It looks like it. You can tell just from where you're standing, where you're walking around, Jay. And I have to say, it's not just Texas, right? You look at Utah, you look at New Mexico, and no, they're not seeing these once-in-a-thousand-year levels yet, but they are seeing floods hurting national parks, right? A symbol of this country, and you're seeing really scary stuff there.
No, you're right. Zion National Park in Utah, flash floods have swept away hikers there, including one woman. Her family says that she cannot swim. The search continues there. Carlsbad Caverns, they're searching there as well. 200 people had to be pulled away because of fast rising water there and moved to higher ground for safety. Like you said, this is affecting an area that really sweeps across through Texas, and this system is going to continue to move to the south. So look for areas like Waco, like the state capital here, Austin, to really get hit with some of what we've seen here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area over the next night and into tomorrow.
Jay Gray, live for us there in Dallas. Jay, glad to have you there for us. Thank you. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Appreciate it. A federal judge in Idaho looks like he might be open to siding with the Biden administration in its case against that state's near total abortion ban, which would go into effect later this week. The judge seems concerned about the ban possibly putting the mother's health at risk and whether doctors would be able to provide emergency care with people who have complications from being pregnant. Now, this is a big deal because this is the Biden administration's first legal challenge to a state abortion ban after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. The Department of Justice, remember, sued Idaho earlier this month, saying that ban violates a federal law that says hospitals that get government money, like Medicaid, they still have to give stabilizing treatments to patients who come in with medical emergencies. So in this case, the Biden administration is arguing that, hey, that would include abortion for a pregnancy emergency. Now, Idaho officials, they argue something different. They say this law already has an exception for the life of the mother. As of now, 15 states have either banned or restricted access to abortion, with legal fights happening in 7 states. I want to bring in Ken Delaney, who's following us, this force here in Idaho. And, you know, the state officials say that, yes, the law gives an exception for life of the mother. But today the judge said the bigger issue relates to doctor hesitancy, basically. Yeah?
That's right, Hallie. The judge essentially expressed skepticism that doctors would be willing to go anywhere near the line, knowing that under this law they could be prosecuted, and the onus is on them to prove that the life of the mother was in danger, potentially at a criminal trial. And this judge said that that's just not a reasonable thing to ask of doctors. And the state, a lawyer for the state legislature countered that, look, no prosecutor is going to bring a case in a pregnancy complication. And the judge said, well, how do these doctors know that? So he really signaled that he is prepared to rule potentially. The Justice Department is asking him to do 2 things: to temporarily halt implementation of this law, which goes into effect on Thursday, and then to rule that it's unconstitutional under the Supremacy Clause. Whatever he rules on the merits, of course, it's going to be appealed, Hallie. So the real question is, will he block this law from being implemented on Thursday? And he has promised to issue a ruling in writing by the end of Wednesday.
And why that matters, Ken, that's important because this Idaho ban is set to go into effect on Thursday.
Yeah, that's right. And so the reason the Justice Department brought this case, Hallie, is because this was widely viewed as one of the most draconian, strict abortion laws with very few exceptions. But again, it's not about the right to abortion. That's already been decided. This case is really about the Supremacy Clause and whether this federal law on emergency services trumps this state law banning abortion.
What's interesting, too, is that you had 20 states, D.C. medical groups, filed briefs siding with the government. But you had other states filing Friday saying that the federal government's guidelines do not actually trump state law, to your point here. And I feel like it seems like it's a microcosm of where the country is right now on this issue. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You had these mostly red states in the South backing Idaho's position. But then you had almost every prominent doctor group in the country coming in and saying, look, we cannot, this is not fair to us to sort of have to decide how many pints of blood a sick pregnant woman has to lose before we intervene to save her life. It's just not realistic. And so it really speaks to this incredible divide on the substance of this very important issue, Hallie. Ken Delaney, and live for us here in the newsroom. Ken, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Heading overseas now, where today the U.S. says they condemn the killing of Daria Dugina, the daughter of a well-known Russian nationalist and Putin ally, after her car was bombed this weekend. Earlier today, Russia claimed it had solved the murder, pointing fingers at Ukraine, but giving zero evidence to back that up. We've also heard from the girl's father, Alexander Dugin, in his first comments, calling on Russia to take revenge on Ukraine for the bombing. Ukraine has denied responsibility. They say, listen, they're not a criminal state. Dugina died after her car exploded near Moscow. Russian investigators say an explosive was put under the car she was driving. You can see what appears to be a distraught Dugin's, her father, at the scene there. But experts are concerned here. They're skeptical of the whole thing, of what the Kremlin is saying, giving Kremlin's tight control over the media there, of their past use of misinformation to further their goals. They are concerned that this could spark a new escalation in this war as it approaches its 6-month mark this week. Josh Letterman is joining us now. So, Josh, Russia's security agency claims they figured out who's behind the attack, right? They're pointing the finger at Ukraine. But there is concern that this is simply a pretense now for Russia to go after Ukraine even harder in this war. Talk us through some of the geopolitical implications here.
Well, what we're hearing from the FSB is that they appear to have solved this with remarkable speed. Less than 24 hours after the murder, the Domestic Intelligence Agency saying they believe that it was a Ukrainian woman working for the special services here who apparently infiltrated Russia about a month ago with her teenage daughter, moved into the same apartment complex as Daria Dugina, and then attended a festival with her and her father the night that she was killed in this car bombing. The Ukrainians are obviously firmly disputing this, and they see this the way that you described, Hallie, which is as an attempt by Russia to create a pretext to further increase the level of violence against Russia. They also are speculating that this is a power struggle playing out within Russia amongst its own political factions and security agencies, that Ukraine is simply getting dragged into the middle of it.
Talk to us more about Dugin here, who he is. He's not part of the Russian government, but he's sometimes referred to as Putin's brain, very close with Vladimir Putin. His daughter, the woman who was killed, has also talked publicly about supporting the war in Ukraine.
That's right. He's not part of the government. In fact, he's never been publicly spotted with President Putin, but he's kind of an intellectual godfather of Putin's views, staunch nationalist views, as well as support for invading Ukraine. I think the way to think of it is the equivalent of the late Rush Limbaugh or a Karl Rove, somebody who's really a Steve Bannon kind of type, who really galvanizes the right wing and creates the intellectual and political underpinnings for what leaders of that vein end up doing. And that is how he is seen as having influenced Putin over the years. But of course, he is already saying that this attack that killed his daughter should be a reason for Russia to seek vengeance, to continue with this war. And we're hearing that echoed by the right wing in Ukraine, in Russia, who is also saying this just means that Russia needs to double down on its war in Ukraine. And that is clearly raising tensions here as they fear what could be happening this coming week, with tensions already high ahead of the 6-month anniversary of the war on Wednesday.
To that point, Josh, do you feel you're there, you're reporting for us, you've been on the ground there for us. Do you feel sort of a heightened state of tension? Like, do you feel the mood shifting a little as we approach Wednesday?
You certainly do, Hallie. And in fact, some areas of Ukraine are starting to announce new restrictions that will be in place for that period of time. Kharkiv, the second largest city in Ukraine, is going to impose around-the-clock curfew because they are so worried about something really bad happening on that day. But at the same time, Ukrainians are also standing up with defiance on this day. We saw Ukrainians parading burnt-out Russian military tanks through the streets of Kyiv this week, essentially thumbing their nose at President Putin and making clear that that invasion that he thought was going to take 3 days to take over Kyiv is not going to happen, and that they believe that ultimately they will win this war.
Josh Letterman live for us there in Ukraine. Josh, thank you so much for being there and for your reporting. So here's a question that I am sure you are pondering late at night as you're trying to fall asleep, as you're thinking about your day ahead. You're thinking, where is Tom Brady? Where is Tom Brady? He's been missing. He hasn't been at training camp since August 11th. Hey, he finally showed up at work today. It's not like we know where he's been. Bucs coach Todd Bowles has called Brady's disappearance an excused absence to deal with some personal things. It's apparently not related to an injury. With this new report that he was actually in the Bahamas at a resort with his family. I want to bring in NBC's Sam Brock. And Sam, this, listen, anything Tom Brady touches turns to internet gold, right? And this is no different. I think this has gone hugely viral. People are wondering, where did Tom Brady go? He finally showed up for work today, but he didn't, talk about this.
He didn't. So, and that's not terribly surprising, Hallie, that we haven't heard from Brady yet. We have heard from his head coach, Todd Bowles, who said it's great to get Brady back. He can really run this offense. Yeah, no kidding. Levante David, star linebacker, also opining, I should say, and saying it's great to have his presence back. It's really one of a kind. But the question was, where was he this entire time, Hallie? And I'm going to point you really to the last 6 or 8 months. Let's go through some of the things that Tom Brady has done. 1, he's retired and then unretired. 2, he signed a 10-year, $375 million contract with Fox Sports, reportedly, for whenever he is done with football. On top of that, he was involved in tampering charges with the Miami Dolphins, who were penalized. They actually lost 2 draft picks. Their owner was fined and suspended because of tampering with Brady, both as a member of the Patriots and then as a member of the Bucs. And, of course, as you talked about, all of this commercial activity, if you will, The Masked Singer and other documentaries, you talked to NFL insiders, and what they said was, this is not about commercials. It's not about production. He wanted to spend time with his family. And lo and behold, we find out there's a report out there that he was in the Bahamas with his wife and kids, very likely a situation, Hallie, where he had come to some sort of agreement with them before he unretired that they were going to take a vacation, and he proved to be a man of his word. Look at that picture.
When you start a new job and you're like, hey, boss, I've got this PTO on the books. I'm not going to skip my trip, man. My plane tickets are booked. Here's the thing. This is there's a lot of division, I think, around people who observe Tom Brady, as I do, as you do. And some people say, hey, you shouldn't get a special exception. Other players don't get special exceptions to skip training camp, right, to go and do whatever they want. There are others who say Tom Brady more than earned this, given his history with the league and what he's done for football.
Fairly or not fairly, this man is the winningest player in the history of the NFL. He has 7 rings. He has won more at this age than most guys did. He's won more in his 40s than most players have won in their 20s or 30s. That's how unprecedented what Tom Brady has accomplished has been, unfolding before our very eyes. So, yes, he's definitely being cut some slack. In fact, Peter King from NBC Sports really breaks down the fact that there are definitely special circumstances for Tom, but rightfully so. Here's what Peter said.
In my opinion, no player in the current history of the NFL has as much currency in the bank as Tom Brady. And if he needs to miss that time, if I were the Bucs, I'd just say, take as long as you want.
And Hallie, the reality is, if you are the Buccaneers, the problem right now is that who are you going to go to? Kyle Trask, was a later round draft pick that was taken to back up Brady, but they don't have someone waiting in the wings who's a franchise quarterback. He easily represents this franchise's best opportunity to not just be competitive, to maybe win another Super Bowl ring on top of the one they did a couple of years ago. So they're going to give him as much space as he needs, knowing he's a professional and Brady will come back. But is it special treatment? Of course it's special treatment. No question.
Sam Brock helping us solve the mystery of the MVP, where Tom Brady has been. Sam, always good to see you. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's the end of the month, and millions of Americans are wondering about the future of their federal student loan debt. Why? Because up until now, in this pandemic, people have had kind of a break. There's been a freeze on federal student loan payments. Guess what? August 31st, that freeze is supposed to be over. It unfreezes. It thaws, if you will, after 2 years. And today, a new CNBC poll says 59% of Americans worry that student loan forgiveness could actually make inflation worse. So the big question, does President Biden, what does he do? What is the president's move here? Does he extend this loan freeze a little longer? Does he let it expire and make people start repaying their debt? Education Secretary Miguel Cardona says within the next week or so, we should hear something. Well, presumably, because again, the deadline is August 31st. 44 million people owe a total of $1.7 trillion in federal student loan debt. They're all waiting on pins and needles on this one. NBC's Maura Barrett joins us now. And Maura, we've already seen the president extend this deadline 4 times, okay? Clock is ticking for potentially time number 5 or not. What are you hearing? What can we expect? Do we even know at this point?
Yeah, Hallie, the president is cutting it incredibly close. In fact, over those last 4 times, this is the closest that he's come up to the deadline since he's been in office to make a decision. We know the White House is balancing whether to extend that pause on those payments or potentially forgiving $10,000, up to $10,000 per borrower if you are under a certain salary cap. That's something that he promised on the 2020 campaign trail. But again, like you said, coming up on that deadline of August 31st, that's next Wednesday. Technically, President Biden could make that announcement on any day that ends in Y. But what we do know from what the Biden administration usually does for announcements, they avoid time that he's on vacation. That's right now for the next few days. He likely will not make the announcement over the weekend. So that gives us just a handful of business days left for the president to make that announcement over the next week and a half. But obviously, that's something we're closely watching, just haven't been given official guidance on yet.
There are 2 sort of buckets I want to take here. One is the economic impact, because the administration, I would imagine, is looking to thread the needle between people who want to see this federal student loan debt remain frozen, and inflation concerns, right? So there's an economy factor they have to bring into play here, right?
And we know that inflation, economy, cost of living are all really important factors for people across America leading up to the midterms, too, right? But in terms of that concern of inflation, some people are worried that if borrowers are forgiven some of their student loans, they might take that money and spend it more and therefore drive up inflation even higher. But the CNBC polling that you just referred to also points out that most people who are in that position say that they wouldn't change their spending habits. And I want to break down how divided Americans are on student loan forgiveness right now. You can see on your screen, 30% say that student loan forgiveness shouldn't be given to anyone, while 34% say that those in need should have loans forgiven, and 32% say that loan forgiveness should be for anybody that has any student debt. And so obviously a very fine line of division here for that the president and the administration needs to consider in terms of who to appease when it comes to this this huge decision that he needs to make in terms of acquiescing to voters. Hallie.
Maura Barrett hitting on both the economic impact, the political impact as well. Our other bucket. Maura, thank you very much. Live for us, it looks like, on the avenue there in Rehoboth, where President Biden is vacationing. Appreciate it. Coming up, some key primary races in important states like New York and Florida. We've got to look at what's at stake, plus the push to get people to the polls. And in tonight's Local, New York's museums forced to make a change by acknowledging art stolen during the Nazi era. Stay with us. So usually when it comes to politics in the midterms, the party that's out of power, right, the one that doesn't hold, let's say, the White House or the Senate or the House, gets more energized about the election. But this year, NBC News polling shows it's not just Republicans, but Democrats who are feeling enthusiastic, almost neck and neck. This is different than it usually is, right? In this new NBC News polling, we're also seeing more Americans say threats to democracy is now their biggest midterm issue, overtaking cost of living, right? You see those numbers right there. With voters in New York, Florida, and Oklahoma heading to the polls tomorrow. Redistricting in New York has 2 high-profile incumbents, 2 sitting Democrats going head-to-head for the same seat. They're going against each other. You see Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler. In Florida, Congressman Matt Gaetz is facing Republican primary challengers who are going after him over the federal investigation and his possible alleged connection to sex trafficking crimes, which Gaetz denies. And 2 Democrats are hoping for the chance to try to unseat Governor Ron DeSantis in November. Joining me now is Shaq Brewster, who is live for us in Florida. And Shaq, let me start. I know you're in Florida. Oh, my gosh, you're outside Versailles, one of the greatest spots for Cuban food of all time. I'm completely distracted by our live shot.
We had some great food today, Hallie.
let me save Florida for dessert then, for the end, okay, friend? And let me start in New York, right? Because you're kind of acting as our midterm watcher for tomorrow. I want you to basically open up your briefing book. Give us the primer on what we should be looking for tomorrow when people in New York vote, because there's two powerful Democrats, Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler. Their faces might be familiar to people who like to watch C-SPAN, right, and the goings-on of Congress. They are in this fierce fight against each other because of redistricting. We don't typically see this kind of thing.
That's right, and tomorrow's result could be unpredictable because of just how unusual this is. You mentioned two powerful Democrats. You might remember Jerry Nadler from chairing the impeachment hearings, both of those impeachment proceedings against former President Trump, and then Carolyn Maloney leading the Oversight Committee in the House. Two of them forced to compete against one another in New York. They've been serving together for some 30 years, forced to compete together because of redistricting and that process there in New York City. And you've seen them draw those distinctions in a race that's gotten somewhat contentious, both on lines of personality and on policy. On personality, you hear Jerry Nadler pointing out that he is the only remaining Jewish congressman representing New York City. Maloney saying that you can't send a man to do what is a woman's job in terms of going to Congress and representing the people of New York. On policy, Nadler's trying to pull that progressive mantle, bringing back his vote against the Iraq war and bringing back and raising his vote in support of the Iran nuclear deal. So you're seeing these two veterans of Democratic politics, people who are known in New York City very well among the similar constituents. You've been seeing them really go head to head in a matchup that was as unexpected as it is unpredictable, Hallie.
There are also interesting matchups where you are in Florida, Shaq. There's, for example, this question of whether Val Demings is going to end up taking on current Senator Marco Rubio. It seems likely that'll happen. We've got the race for governor, kind of a David and Goliath, if you will, because DeSantis is almost certainly going to end up. Of course, he's going to be the returning Republican candidate. But then there's a battle between two Democrats to try to take on DeSantis.
That's exactly right, Hallie. And, for full disclosure, the reason why we're here at this restaurant is because Nikki Fried was here this morning. This was one of her first stops
to you, Shaq, is if you picked this live shot just to have a good dinner. Fine. I believe you.
Exactly. And, as a good reporter I am, I had to eat what she ordered, and I had to drink the Cuban coffee to just make sure that I can see what the candidates were doing and what they were experiencing throughout the day. But, yes, this is going to be a big battle. It's a battle to take on Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. This is a governor who's popular, who polls over 50% in his approval, who has $130 million, Hallie, in the bank, ready to turn against either of these two candidates. And what you're hearing from these candidates, as we see the polling extremely close, is they're each painting themselves and positioning themselves as the best candidate to take on DeSantis. You have Charlie Crist, a former Republican governor of the state of Florida. He's a current Democratic representative, congressman here. He is saying that he has the experience, that he will be able to win over moderate voters, win over moderate Republican voters in this state to beat DeSantis, while you have Nikki Fried saying that she is the only Democrat who's been elected statewide here on a recent basis. She believes it's about juicing up the turnout, and she'll be better, she says, among suburban women. We're going to have a pretty close race to watch tomorrow, Hallie.
It's going to be an interesting one. We're going to have special coverage of it here on News Now. Shaq, how many of those Cuban coffees did you have specifically? Like roughly?
Can you tell I'm talking a little fast? I had a few.
Shaq Brewster, ladies and gentlemen, vibrating out of his shoelaces for us live on TV. Thank you, Shaq. Appreciate you. Enjoy.
Got it.
Coming up here on the show, we are turning to other news here tonight, including the new questions surrounding the possible death of a 16-year-old. We're going to have the latest on the search for her and the new statement from her family. Plus, a Beverly Hills boutique going to extremes to try to stop robberies, and that includes a ban on face masks, even the kinds you wear for COVID. We've got more on that in tonight's Local. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Midwest Bureau, teachers at Ohio's biggest school district are on strike. ahead of the first day of school Wednesday. The Columbus Education Association union voted just yesterday to do this. They want better teaching conditions. The union represents more than 4,000 teachers, nurses, other education professionals. The Columbus Board of Education will hold an emergency meeting tonight. From our Northeast Bureau, New York museums are now required to acknowledge art that was stolen during the Nazi era. Museums are going to have to display a sign next to any artwork from before 1945 that's known to be stolen from Europeans, primarily Jewish people. The new law is part of Governor Hochul's attempt to try to boost education about the Holocaust and to honor survivors. From our West Coast Bureau, a store in Beverly Hills is banning masks, not for anything having to do with COVID, but because they're worried about robberies and violence. The owner of Kitson LA, super popular place, says people in the area have been wearing masks to avoid being identified in smash and grab robberies. The store says the decision is to protect the safety of the staff and of items in the store. The family of one 16-year-old girl who went missing in Northern California over 2 weeks ago, releasing a statement just as we've been on the air, saying they are indebted to everyone who helped search for her. This comes after police announced earlier that they think they found her body and her car at the Prosser Creek Reservoir at Tahoe National Forest. You're looking at some video of the car being pulled from the lake yesterday. Hallie Rodney disappeared from a big party at the Prosser family campground on Saturday, August 8th. And we want to point out, because it's important to us here to do this, that more than 600,000 people go missing every year, according to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons Database. And of those, nearly 40% are people of color. Not every case gets media attention. And the coverage between white victims and victims of color is not proportionate. So why are we talking about this case today? It has to do with the fact that she was found not far from where she was last seen. Just a few hundred yards, apparently. And the people who found her after weeks of searching weren't even police. It was a private dive team, a private search and recovery team called Adventures with Purpose that comes out. They came out in this instance and say they found her car. Raf Sanchez joins us now. And they found her car, Raf, this group, Adventures with Purpose, in a lake that police had already searched, which is raising some questions about how officials missed this initially in the first place.
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. And those questions were hanging over today's press conference. As you said, police in Northern California have been searching for Hallie Rodney for more than 2 weeks. They've had help from the FBI. They had helicopters, and they had been in that lake already. And then when Adventures with Purpose showed up, they said it took them just 35 minutes to find that car. So take a listen to what sheriff's deputies had to say when that question was put to them at today's press conference.
The lake was extensively searched with side sonar, with an ROV. We had divers, we had swimmers. I think that's part of what we're going to have to go back to do and debrief.
Now, those volunteers from Adventures with Purpose say they did have a highly sophisticated sonar system, and that's what allowed them to find this car in just 14 feet of water in that lake. But, Hallie, it's raising a whole lot of questions about how these volunteers were able to find a car that state, local, and federal officials were unable to locate.
There was you make the point here, this huge search for Rodney, multiple agencies coming together, including the FBI. There are still a lot of questions that do not have answers here. Can you talk about next steps, Raf, where the investigation goes now?
Yeah, so they need to determine cause of death here. There's going to be an autopsy tomorrow. There's going to be a toxicology report that may take a little bit longer. One of our NBC producers, who was actually at the press conference, asked authorities, is there any sign of foul play? They wouldn't comment on that at this point. It certainly does look possible that this was an accident, given how close the car was found to the point that she disappeared. As you said, Hallie, we also have just heard from the family in the last couple of minutes. I want to read you a little bit of their statement. They said, while we accept this sadness cast under death's shadow, the rising sun shines light upon us, reminding us not to mourn our loss, but to celebrate Kylie's spirit and the gift that we all received in knowing her. Hallie, I'll tell you, this was a family that was holding out hope that they were going to see their daughter alive. They were making desperate media appearances, and this is the worst possible news for them. The only possible consolation here is at least they know, right? They have been spending more than 2 weeks with this uncertainty, and at least now they know. Police say they will make a positive ID, hopefully at some point in the next couple of days. Hallie?
Just unimaginable heartbreak for that family with so many people around the country thinking of them, sending them strength. Raph Sanchez, thank you. Still ahead here on the show, Dennis Rodman, known for his theatrics on and off the basketball court. Well, now he wants to go to Russia, he tells NBC News, to help get Brittany Griner out of prison. We'll talk about this new move from a face that you know. Tonight, the State Department saying former NBA star Dennis Rodman is not acting on behalf of the Biden administration after Rodman exclusively told NBC News he's planning a trip to Russia soon to try and free WNBA star Brittany Griner. State Department spokesperson Ned Price saying, hey, let's be clear. Rodman, he says, would not be traveling on behalf of the U.S. government. It comes after Rodman told us that he got permission to, in his words, and I'm quoting here, go to Russia to help that girl, adding, I'm trying to go this week. And the Biden administration is not so into this idea because the U.S. has its own official offer, like through diplomatic channels out, to try to swap Russian arms dealer Victor Bout for Griner and for Paul Whelan, another American who's currently held there. If Rodman does go, it's not like it'd be the first time he'd be stepping in to play unofficial diplomat, if you will. He's been to North Korea multiple times, become kind of friendly with Kim Jong-un. He even called President Putin cool after a 2014 trip to Moscow. John Allen is joining us now. And John, can you help us set the scene? Because this was not like some formal sit down with Dennis Rodman. You were out. Can I say that you were? Well, you tell us what you're doing. I don't want to blow up your spot. And Rodman pulls up because he's in town for a sneaker convention. You just happened to run into him here in D.C. this weekend.
Yeah, I was smoking a cigar on the patio of a cigar lounge restaurant bar in Washington with some of my friends, and he pulls up. And he sits down with his entourage at the tables next to us and starts engaging my table. He's talking about politics, global affairs, love, a variety of things. And one of the things he says is that he's going to try to go to Russia to help Brittany Griner, and that he's going to try to go this week. This is, as you pointed out in the intro, that not the first time Dennis Rodman has talked about dabbling in international affairs, perhaps being the dictator whisperer on the sidelines with Kim Jong-un in the past. And he said that he knows Vladimir Putin, quote, too well.
Let me talk about two things here, because number one, he has gone on the international scene. He's credited himself with helping to free American Kenneth Bae from North Korea, for example. He obviously thinks he could be helpful if he actually does go. Otherwise, presumably, he would not go. But the State Department has some serious concerns, John. I know that an official told you that they feel like this would just potentially backfire because it could kind of throw a wrench into those official talks that are happening. Help us understand that.
Yeah, the administration's position here is pretty clear, that they think the best path to getting Brittany Griner back is to do some sort of prisoner swap with Russia, that they have diplomatic channels, that Dennis Rodman has not been appointed to an ambassadorship by Joe Biden, or certainly does not have the aegis of the United States government behind him. So they would prefer if he butted out. They're being a little bit more diplomatic than that, though.
Does he have any basketball connection? Like, do they sort of, obviously Brittany Griner, WNBA star, Dennis Rodman, former NBA star, obviously many years ago, but did that come up at all in your conversation with him?
It didn't really, and I'm not sure that it had a lot to do with his interest in going over to Russia. I mean, this is something that he feels like he's established a reputation on and would like to, I think, continue to be of help where he believes he can. And
he was serious about it, right? Like, he's going to go. He thinks he's going to,
Yeah, he was serious, absolutely dead serious about it.
Yeah. John Allen, please keep us updated. That's a story that we'll certainly want to continue to have the scoops on. Thank you, friend. Good to see you.
Thanks, Hallie.
That does it for us this hour. We're going to have more for you here tomorrow, of course, same time, same place. Glad you are with us, as always. Thanks for watching. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.